So you didn't go golfing?
Interviewing?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, so it's July 4th, 2007. And it's a year after Mom, so state your name for the case. State your name
State
for
my
the
name
state
for
your
the
name for
case.
the jury.
James Otten.
All right, and just realize that when this is put together, in whatever format it's going to be put together, somebody's going to be watching this in 2030.
Am I supposed to be looking here or you?
Sure, right here.
Okay. I was looking at you.
And you're probably talking to a, let's see, he would be 30-year-old Jack, probably.
30-year-old Jack. And what year did you say? 2000?
I don't know, 2030, maybe somebody's watching this.
Okay. Well, I'll still be around. I'll be able to talk to him, right? I'll be 105. No, 95.
1942 to 2030.
Yeah, right now. Right now, I'm 65. In 30 years, I'd be 95. Right?
Wouldn't be 30 years. It'd be 23 years.
Oh, well, I'll be around.
All right.
Okay, whatever.
All right.
Okay, hopefully.
And where were you born and raised?
Where was I born? I was born in Cincinnati, Ohio, and raised in Cincinnati, Ohio.
And where were you born at?
Good Samaritan Hospital.
That's where I was born. And let's see, I don't know what the hell I was asked. I just winged it.
I grew up in Finneytown and Green Hills.
And
Went to
where in
St.
Green Hills did
Went
you
to St.
live?
Vivian's Grade School and went to Roger Bacon High School
And where in Green Hills did you live?
on Farragut Road.
What house?
What do you mean, what house?
What house? What's the street number?
Well, 171. That's
Which-
where my grandson lived. The grandson and his family live
At the moment?
at
Yes.
the moment.
All right.
At this moment, right.
And where's your spouse?
My spouse, I'm not sure where she was on the phone before.
With who?
Her sister-in-law, Sherry Navarro. Her brothers, deceased brother's wife.
And
Right here?
I beg your pardon?
and there she is.
I said.
There's Grandma O.
So you're going to take, well, you're not going to take her A1 out tonight.
Okay, we're still just kind of winging it here until I'm able to figure out
Well, sure. That's
something solid. All right. Well, who were your parents?
Jack and Wilma Otten.
And somebody's named after that parent.
Well, my first grandson is named Jack Otten, and he's named after my dad. And he lives in the same house, 171 Farragut.
And we wonder where they are today.
I don't know.
Has anybody made contact today on to
Nobody's,
celebrate July 4th?
nobody's made contact except you, Gregory.
Fair enough.
I expect to hear from Paul, but I'm not sure when.
Paul's
Maybe.
about ready to move into his first house.
Yes. He talked about hitting golf balls tonight, but I don't know. Since he went to the game today, probably not. But the weather's too bad. It's going to tornado watch.
The game at the current state, very disappointing.
Very disappointing.
So we'll see if maybe by the time this is watched someday in the future,
Did
it'll
you see
actually.
Barry Bonds last night hit a home run?
It's on first inning.
Four left to tie Henry Aaron.
Yeah.
But they didn't play him today.
Well, he'll play tomorrow. He's got that veteran crap. He doesn't have to play a night.
Well, they
after,
don't want him
a
to break
day
it.
after a night game.
They don't want him to break it here. They want him to break it at home.
It doesn't matter. He doesn't play the day after a night game.
Oh, he doesn't?
Yeah.
Whatever.
I don't know.
Whatever.
I'm just winging it.
Hope everybody's fine. It's 30 years down the road, but I'm feeling pretty good. I just turned 65. Feel pretty good.
It's still
So
working.
far, still working. Still working full time.
Where?
Ribbon and wheel service.
How long you worked there since?
19 years in next month.
Since what?
August of 88.
Since what event in August of '88?
Since what event in August of 88? Well, I had a slight heart attack in that period right before I started this job. And haven't had a problem since.
And that was to cut smoking as well.
Yes, that was the last time I had a cigarette. It was August of 1988.
And how long had you been smoking for?
How long? Since I was in high school.
And why did you start?
I don't know. Just started. I don't know. I can't remember why. I just did. There's no reason everybody was doing it, and there was really no reason. And I become not addicted to it, but I guess I liked it. I guess now I have no craving at all.
And both parents smoked?
No, just my father. My mother never smoked. No,
I thought you did.
No.
Okay, so Hilda smoked.
her mother smoked. Hilda smoked. Yes. My dad smoked to the very end. Jack Otten smoked to the very end.
Like,
Well,
sitting in a
no,
nursing
he
home.
was when he was on his last few months. He didn't because he would not give it up. He was in it. There's a difference between an addicted smoker and habitual. I was habitual. He was addicted. I could stop like that. He couldn't.
Fair enough.
Since I had the heart attack, I've had no craving for him whatsoever.
But hopefully smoking is abolished by the time this is watched.
Well, that's true.
It already is.
Starting to be abolished in public places, and
So I'm still married to a smoker, so you
Yeah.
don't know about that.
does she still smoke a lot, Greg, or does she smoke? Does she? How can she?
She's probably
I see the prices. I bet that's expensive. What about $25 for a carton or something?
30
Well, I see them over in
30 to
Kentucky.
40.
Oh my gosh, Jason.
What are you gonna do? She's
I know.
she's up in smokehouse right now.
Yeah, everybody. Does her mother and father both smoke?
Mhm.
I didn't remember if her mother did. I know her dad did.
Smokes like a chimney. He does. All right. Who are your siblings?
Well, I have a sister Judy and a sister Kathy.
Who you're going to see soon?
I'm going to see my sister Kathy in about a week and a half. She lives in Virginia, up by Dulles Airport. And I saw my sister Judy a couple nights ago. We went to dinner. She lives in Cincinnati with her husband Edward, and Kathy lives in Virginia with her husband.
Butch.
Well, it's not Butch. It's
Lloyd.
Lloyd Keyser. Yeah,
Ooh, you've got to tell them to get a webcam.
I have. Yeah, I'll have to tell them when I go up there to see him. I'll have to go up and tell
Again, by the time this is watched, that'll probably be old hat. But right now, the technology
Sure, we got to
exists
go with the
fine.
technologies.
That you can have a webcam and have a conversation over the brand new internet that we're all having fun with.
Right, it's very nice.
What else? What else? We've talked about the Reds suck. What else is going on now? Are you
No,
going
not
to
just-
retire soon?
Well, I hope to. I mean, I'm going to continue to work for a while. Primarily, I'm working now because of the health insurance that we need because of Mom with her health. But I'll be retired. I'll be collecting Social Security in about 6 months. I'll start collecting.
Tell us about that recent scare, Mother. All right, she's got her mouth full, so maybe we can.
You mean the recent scare on the trip to Vegas?
Yes, that you went to Las Vegas.
Well,
for
I
the first
gave
time.
her. She turned 65 in February, and that was my birthday present to her to take her to Vegas. And we went to Vegas a couple months ago in April, and she got pretty sick, and we didn't do a thing. We didn't play one thing in Vegas except one slot machine in the airport on the way back, and that's it. If you can believe that.
And for point of reference, it was me, Gary, Paul, Brian, and everybody else in the family except for Jennifer, my wife, sitting in the right field stands of Great American Ballpark when I got a phone call just before the Reds were about ready to win a come-from-behind win. So I had to wait 10 minutes for the Reds to win and for the fireworks to subside before I could tell everybody what the phone call was about. So that was very interesting.
Oh yeah, that's where you were. Yeah, sorry about that.
Oh, it's fine. I just had to sit there and watch an end of a game before I could say anything.
And that wasn't that the night that my son Paul was playing. Paul and my other son.
You don't
Brian.
have to keep saying your son, Paul.
Well, Paul and Brian, they have a band.
Yes.
You don't know. You know now, but it may not be later. But they have a band, and they were playing at the Reds game that night.
Which I just took this down.
Gary was there too.
Everybody was there except for Jen.
Well, where was she?
Streetsboro.
Oh, was she?
And that's a cute little magazine cover from Miami University of that guy.
That's our second son, Paul, the piano man.
Who's about ready to get his own house.
Yeah, he's got it. I don't think he's got it
We'll
yet.
move into.
Yeah, did he close? And did
Now closing's in a couple weeks.
Is it okay? He had some issues with the what do you call it?
I'll probably get in trouble with this quote maybe sometime in the future. He'll be moving in. Is he moving in? Is he moving in? Okay.
Yes.
So he'll be moving in with Susie, who's this year's girlfriend. We have
this year's.
We have family photographs everywhere, and each one Paul has somebody different on his arm.
He does.
You got Lisa up here. You got Kim and other ones. You got
Oh,
the picture back here with what was her name? Previous one, dark hair.
The one he was married to?
No, dark hair. previous.
Previous to
Oh,
this?
Anna.
Anna, that's right.
Oh, Anna, I don't remember.
Out back, and now moving in Susie. I'll go ahead and delete this out when I'm editing, so he won't hear the audio in
And
20 years.
well, I'm staring at a wall that Gregory's standing on that's going to be coming down for long. We're gonna
Well,
have-
we
He's
would
not
only hope.
standing on it.
I mean, he's sitting in front of it.
I'd only hope.
It is. Yeah, we've already told
After
Gary.
10 years of
We've
saying.
given Gary the go-ahead to not the front wall, just the side wall.
So, schooling, where did you go to grade school?
I'm telling you before, I went to St. Vivian's Grade School, which is in Finneytown, and I went to high school Roger Bacon, which is in St. Bernard, Ohio.
And
And I went
did
to
you go to
UC,
college?
went to University of Cincinnati Night School.
And how long did you go to college for?
Probably 10 years, 2 years during the day, 8 at night to finish up. And in the meantime, I was in the military in the middle of all that, so it took longer than expected.
And what was the military experience?
Military experience was reserves for 6 years. 3 years in the National Guard, High National Guard, 3 years in the Army Reserves, Fort
Remember
Thomas, Kentucky.
The years?
Yeah, started in December '65, got out in December '71. 3 years in the High National Guard, 3 years in Fort Thomas, Kentucky.
Did you go out of country or fight in
No.
Vietnam or do anything?
The active duty away was basic training, and other active duty involved fighting riots, which we had in the '60s. Not for the only with the National Guard, not with the Army Reserves. That's federal.
So you weren't in Kent State for these people who
No.
have a point of reference here?
No,
He's in Dayton.
I was in Dayton, but I was not in it. That Kent State was in 1970. I was already in the Army Reserves then. Yeah, yeah. I was in.
You can speak up.
Well, Kent State's up. Kent State's is. Where's Kent State, Greg? Is it up?
It's right up south of where Jen's parents live. in
Oh, it's
Streetsboro.
up. That's right. It's
By
up
Akron.
to Akron. Okay.
It's like 5 minutes away from Streetsboro.
Yeah.
Okay. And so when did you get married?
We got married in September of 1969. Just
Okay.
kidding.
How did you meet?
Well, we met at a dance at the St. Bernard Eagles over 21 dance.
St. Bernard
It's
Eagles?
the St. Bernard Eagles dance. They had it on Sunday night for over 21 people. We met there at a dance, yes.
And in case somebody who's
Yeah.
watching this wants to be industrious and drive around, where was that
It's
at?
in St. Bernard, Ohio, down the street from Roger Bacon off of Vine Street.
Okay.
And it'd be hard for me to describe where it is because I have been there for a long time, but it's, if you got off of Interstate 75 at Mitchell Avenue, you go Mitchell Avenue to Vine and you turn left going north and you'd follow probably for about 3 miles and right in the heart of St. Bernard and you'd find the Eagles Hall. That's where it was.
And this is
If
all
that
gonna be
makes
really
sense, then,
crappy. And what were you doing there?
With a group of girls at a dance.
Just because it was the thing to do?
Yeah. They had a lot of things for over 21ers. There were a lot of dances around the city that we could go to and clubs.
And what made you pick this guy?
I don't know. It just worked.
We just danced and it felt good.
Fair enough.
I mean, there was something clean when we danced. Don't ask me why I was there because I don't remember why I was there. I guess I was there with a bunch of fellas, but I don't know.
And what did you dance to first time? Come
Don't
on.
know.
I don't know.
We don't know. We don't know.
It might have been Misty, but I'm not sure.
Oh boy, don't ask me that. I wouldn't even have a clue.
So did you start dating right off the bat?
Pretty soon.
Where was your first date?
I don't know.
We used to see, after that was a short while, we used to see at the Sunlight Pool, at the Coney Island Sunlight Pool a lot. When we started dating, the problem came up as this. She lived in Mount Washington, I lived in Green Hills. Back in those days, there was no expressways, and it was a long trip for me to come there, which I did, but it was a long trip to go there. To Mount Washington from Green Hills back then.
You didn't make that trip that often.
I
We
did.
usually met.
No, on a Saturday night I'd come up and picked you up at your house and drove home, out down Columbia Parkway and up whatever. What did I take? I don't remember. I don't know how I did it. Oh no, I went across down Edwards Road and up by XU and down Mitchell Avenue, whatever, you know, if you take Mitchell Avenue and go back past that shoe, huh?
Winton.
Then you go up
Becomes Dana.
Dana, I went that way. That's the way I went home, and over that way down Dana to Mitchell Avenue to Winton Road and straight on out.
And how long would it take you?
45 minutes to an hour, at least. Maybe longer. Oh yeah.
Driving 10 miles an hour? Hell, I could make that trip
Rick.
now in 4 minutes without
There's a lot of
highways.
traffic lights and a lot of stops. There's an expressway.
Okay, well, when was this?
19...
When was this dance?
65.
60... Was it that?
Well, 66, he went to Fort Knox. I think it was right before that. It was.
Oh, yeah,
early
yeah, it was right-
66,
It was, yeah.
Winter.
Winter of 66. No, I was in the military in winter of 66. I left in September and came back in January. 67.
But I was going with you before you left.
Yeah. So it was,
I can solve
66.
this. There are home movies that exist that are labeled 1966 where he's sitting in the living room at Beacon Street, so with a
Oh.
string black tie,
okay, really?
like Thanksgiving 66. I just watched these.
Well, I came
Not
home.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
or something like
I
that.
came home.
Margie came home or something.
I came home for holidays. I got a pass and I took it and got home. I don't remember how I got home, but I got home. And I had to be back. Yeah. I just left. It was bus trip somewhere. I took a bus trip. It was, yeah.
Do you remember the first time you met her parents and her family?
No, I don't.
First date.
Yeah, the first day when I picked her up, I mean, back then we picked the first date, you picked up the house, you met the parents sized you up and said, is he okay, and blah, blah, blah. It's different today. I don't think the parents ever see the sibling, or not the sibling, but the partner to be till whenever. It's not like you go picked up, when you met Jen, you met her at school, right?
Okay, so did your parents ever give feedback when you got home?
Oh yeah, they thought he was cute and nice.
She's being very political. Very politically correct.
Politically correct, sure. I was
Okay,
the
well,
man about town them days, right? No,
I don't know.
I don't know.
fine, a question for you. What car did you pick her up in?
What car did I pick her up
There's
in?
your type of question.
Your Chevy, black one.
I picked her up in my 1964 Impala then, if that's what it was. The next, that was my first new car. 64, two-door coupe, Impala, red interior stick. It was a nice car. Because after that we were dating, I had the 67, the green one.
So you'll notice that he knows every single detail about the car he took her on her first date, but he has no clue what the first song was that he danced with her to. So
No, I don't. I
Fair
really
enough.
don't. Yeah, because I went to a lot of dances and there was a lot of songs in them days. I don't even know.
So songs being the key word for girls. There were a lot of girls in those days.
No, there was a lot of dances we went to. I went to a lot of dances.
Fair enough.
That was the thing back then. You go to dances.
Okay. And how did you propose? Okay. That we're gonna have because it's July 4th. Okay. How did you propose?
In the car, in the driveway.
Was it premeditated for a long time?
Well, yeah, I was ready. Yeah. What do you mean by
He
premeditated?
was hesitant.
I was hesitant, sure, because I won't go into that, but
No, you go into it.
No.
This is for posterity's
well,
sake.
He was rebounding.
I had an early experience early in my life when I was engaged, and it didn't work out, and I was a little hesitant. That's why it was so long after that one that I got serious again, because I was young and I didn't.
And when was that?
When was that? I was only 20, maybe. Let's see.
Not when we met.
No, when I was going with a girl from Western Hills. Yeah, because I was in high school. Yeah, I was in high school when I dated her, but we were engaged and I was 20, and it didn't work out. And I just didn't want to get serious again, because when you get stuck like that, or you get, what's not going to work, you kind of think about it. So, yeah, but I was ready. At that late age, I was more mature and ready to go.
Except 2 weeks before the wedding, you tried to get out of it.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you
No, what, like what?
Well, your dad's been sick, so
Well,
maybe we should
okay.
postpone the wedding.
I don't know. I don't remember that. That's what she says. I don't have a recollection of that.
Invitations had already been sent.
Oh, yeah.
Gifts received.
Worked out fine. It's been a great marriage. Been great. We got 4 wonderful children and 5 wonderful grandchildren, and just worked out great. We couldn't have asked for anything better.
And where did you honeymoon? Or did you?
We honeymooned in Gatlinburg. We got married in September. Well, I'm not done yet. I just don't. He's not. For you people who are listening, the young son over there is just going to turn 30. He's a little babe in arms. He's over there laughing. We got married in September. We went to Gatlinburg, and it rained the whole time, which is down in Gatlinburg. For those who don't know, it's in Tennessee, and it rained from the morning to night when we were down there. So we said, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to go back, and we're going to take a honeymoon. We're going to go the next spring. Okay. The next spring came. Was it Easter or April? It was around April. We went to Fort Lauderdale, Florida for our real honeymoon. But it wasn't a but at that point she was already pregnant with our first son, Gary. So it wasn't the same as, we didn't have, this was after the marriage, obviously. So, but our real honeymoon was Fort Lauderdale, Florida. But the first one right after the marriage was Gatlinburg, Tennessee, but it rained the whole period. We weren't having any fun. We couldn't do anything. We just said, we're going to go home. We're going to work on our apartment, get it ready. We're going to take a big trip the following spring, which we did, to Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Drove.
And where was your first house? Did you move straight from Farragut Road into a house after you got married?
When I moved from Farragut Road to the apartment, 1810 Lake Knoll Drive, which was in Mount Healthy. And that's where I moved from. And then when we moved from there to the house we're in right now, which is 1274 Sanborn Court in Reading. We've been there ever since 1972.
And when the first child was, okay, how did you tell him that you were pregnant for the first child? Was it a big surprise, or was it planned? To like, okay, we're married, babies.
Yeah, it was pretty planned. I mean, yeah, we knew she was pretty ripe to wanting children. I knew that, the way she was pretty hot to trot to wanting kids.
It was my Christmas present.
And because of the fact we weren't getting any younger, we wanted to make sure we didn't get too old before we started having children, and we were both 30, let's see, 29,
27.
28, 27. So, I mean, we weren't young chicks anymore. And it worked out good. Yeah, we had the good kids.
I was 26 when I got pregnant with him.
What?
I think so.
No,
1942, 1962 is 20. 1969 would be 27.
27 years
Yeah,
old, yeah,
okay.
69.
Do the math.
Well, she got married,
1969.
you got pregnant in, Gary was born October 9, so you got pregnant until 1970.
70.
Because Gary was born in October, that's 10 months, would have been 9 months, you got married about February of 70. But you were just more or less a couple months into it when we went on our honeymoon, our trip to Florida. Because Gary was born in October, right, yeah.
Were you able to know in those days what the baby was?
We did not know.
Until the last
No.
month?
Not able to know, weren't able to know. Today, back then, I mean, I could not go in the delivery room. The only one I was in the delivery room was with my young son, Greg. When we first, because everybody else was born within a couple hours. Greg was the last one, and it was on a Sunday night, and she said, it's time to go, about 11 o'clock. I said, okay. And my parents came over and watched the other 3. We went to the hospital, but Gregory wasn't born until 4 o'clock on Monday afternoon.
Which they keep saying that, but I have looked into it, and the calendar is disagreeing with your days of the week, according to my birthday.
It was on a Sunday night we went up there. You were not born till Monday afternoon. I know that. Whatever the days were, that's the way it was. It was early. It was late Sunday night. I had to call my parents, and they came running over to watch the other 3 youngsters while we went to the hospital. And usually the last one comes quick, and that's why I told her we got to get out of here in a hurry, because I wasn't used to delivering babies, and we got out of here and went right down to Good Sam, and Gregory wasn't born. And then when we were there was fires and all kind. I've told you about all that.
Not plural.
There was a fire in the area where we were, and they were evacuating everybody, and we almost had to go down to the emergency room and have the baby, but we didn't. We went into the regular room and we went, and then when I first got there, they asked me if I wanted to go in. I said, nah, that's fine. But by the time I was there a few hours, I was able to go into the delivery room and watch the birth, which is the only, out of the 4 sons, Gregory was the only one I was able to do that with. The rest of them, we weren't allowed, or it wasn't offered to us. No idea what the birth, what the
Sex
was at that point. No idea. Thought sure Gregory, the last one, was going to be a girl. I just had that feeling, but he's not.
Yeah,
He's a
that's
good
me.
young man.
Okay, so you skipped ahead. So who were you missing in the middle? You skipped from Gary to me.
Oh, okay. Well, Gary was born in October of '70. We were still living in our apartment, and we looked at this house, and she was pregnant with Paul.
Now,
Paul was
this,
born in March of '72.
but was this house built, or
This
was
house
it just
was-
a lot?
The house was up. The only thing was up was the structure. Inside was just studs. There was no drywall, no yard. It was all mud, and that's when we bought it. When we bought it, and we moved.
Why did you choose here?
We don't know. We just. It's a,
Because it was almost directly in the middle between his parents and my parents.
and the area was very nice when we drove back in here. It was a very nice. It was new. It was a brand new neighborhood. I mean, from the end down there up, 4 houses down. The older houses down there were there, but this was school property back then. And we just liked the area, and it looked nice, so we thought we'd try it, and we've been here ever since. We were going to move when Gregory was born in the late '70s. We had a down payment on a place in Loveland, but
What was the street?
uh,
Poplar
was it Poplar?
Mhm.
I don't know. Is that what it was? I can't remember. Yeah, it was in Loveland.
in Glen Lake.
Glen Lake subdivision in Loveland, and we decided not to.
Why?
Because we were getting jerked around.
We went into that situation with a realtor, and the realtor, if we didn't sell this house, they were going to take it and trade. Well, what happened is, since they were going to take it and trade, they never showed it until the last week. That they tried to sell it because they wanted to take it and trade and get it cheap, and then go ahead and turn around and sell it and make money. Instead of selling it for the full retail value or the full market value at that time. So they called me and said the house out in Loveland was done. It was under construction, and I said, okay. So as a fellow in the neighborhood who was a builder, so I took him with me out there to look at it. We found 110 things that weren't done in the house when they said it was done and ready. So we got out of the contract, we got our deposit money back, and at that point we decided we would add on to this house, which we did. We put a family room onto the back, and we stayed here and made bedrooms downstairs, 2 bedrooms, and we had a 5-bedroom house. And it's worked out very good.
When was the addition put on the back?
Late 1980,
80.
the fall of 1980.
And
And
why is it not as big as it should be? Never mind. Never.
I don't know, there's a comment by this young man, but I'm not sure what he's talking about. Why is it not as big? What do you mean?
She has issues with the room,
With what room?
with the family room.
What?
How it's not as big as it could have been, or something.
Herm said it could have been 4 feet wider.
How can it be wider? I mean, if we had to go that way.
That way.
Well, that's
Out.
Oh, out. Well,
That would save him having to cut
why didn't we
the
do it?
lumber. Because you said what size you wanted, and I was scared to death to make
Well, I
any
thought maybe it was
changes.
the money. I don't remember. Really? I don't remember. I'm sorry, I don't remember that.
It was going to be the same price.
Oh, why don't we should have done it? Why didn't we do it? I don't know. I don't remember why. There must have been a reason why I didn't do it, but I don't know why.
Ah.
Okay, I can't tell you why I said no at this point. I don't remember, but I must have had a good reason, or I would have done it. Why would I have not done it?
I don't know why you wouldn't.
Cut into the backyard?
Because
I don't
was
know.
very intimidated.
I don't know. Really, you remember that, Greg? I don't remember. Nobody ever told me that.
She just told me the story.
No, I never heard that.
That and the fireplace. Those are the 2
Well,
stories.
the fireplace is a different story. That was it should have been
Stone.
stone, and I was stuck on brick, and that's what we went with, and that's the way it is.
And now you've got 1980 littered in that room.
Well, we do. When I retire, what I will be doing is taking the paneling off myself. I will do that myself, and then have somebody patch it and paint it. I have somebody.
When you retire, you don't even know when that's
I said, when I retire, I mean, I don't need anybody to come in and do it. I can come in, I can take the pan, you gotta take everything out, move everything out of there. I'll take the paneling off, have somebody patch the drywall. If I can't do it, then I'll paint it and we'll be fine. Somebody wants to do it for him, go ahead, but I don't have the time to do it right now. But when I'm retired, I'll have plenty of time to do it.
Well, we have a son here who's anxious to get at the paneling.
Well, if he wants, if he's that anxious and he's got that time, let him do it.
I already started some. I took those stupid curtain rods down so that you
That's
just have
good, yeah.
open windows now. Did that 2 years ago when they
Yeah.
were on vacation. I had to sneak in and do it. Of course, the screw holes are still in the panel.
By the way, we're gonna be gone again.
In 2 weeks.
But
Or next-
will you come over
next week.
next weekend, starting next Saturday? You come over and do this stuff. We don't have to stop anything.
I'm the mail pickup and newspaper person for this household when everybody's gone.
Yeah, well, I'll talk to you about that thing.
What? Go ahead. What?
Well, the thing about David, are you gonna go up there?
I'd
I
like
gotta,
to, but I
Is
gotta
this
figure
all
out.
recorded?
Yeah, I don't care.
well, let's don't record this. I have
I don't
a
care.
problem. I wanna tell you what my problem is with it.
What?
Well, third Tuesday, I'm scheduled to work the Saturday we're leaving, at Rimmon on my
14th.
Saturday. I couldn't find anybody, okay, the 14th. But a guy came in my office Tuesday, and one of the other guys said, hey, Jim, I'm gonna be on vacation the 28th. Would you switch? And I said, oh, that'd be great, I'll switch with you. And I switched, and all of a sudden, I was about an hour later, I thought, oh, wait a minute, her and I talked about, because they have this call the night before about going to that. I
The
thought,
party.
oh, shoot, I forgot all about that. So I told him to put it on hold. I went back and told him on Tuesday. I told him I'd let him know tomorrow whether it's okay if I switch with him, because it'd be better for me than that Saturday we're leaving. I don't have to worry about, like,
Well, finance is going to dictate us because we want to do a whole circle with all of the people
Yeah.
we know who live up in Washington.
that's what she said. You want to go visit Kate Butch and somebody else. And,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Well,
we'll figure it out.
problem is if I say I'm going to work, then I can't go up there with her. I mean, I'll be all tied up that half a morning. And the flights we looked at going up and come back the same day leaves at 6, comes back at 7 o'clock at night or 4 o'clock in the afternoon if she goes up and back the same day. I mean, I could pick her up.
You've been
How's
you've
she
been at
going
this
to
place
get up there
for
at
20
6?
years and you can't tell them somebody take this day?
Yeah, but there's only 4 of us now that work on Saturday. 4 of us. There's only 4.
Well, you tell.
Well, I
whoever it
can't.
is, tell what.
He's on vacation. Everybody else is on vacation. I can't.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I couldn't switch with what I'm on now.
I don't know what to tell you. I'd like to go, but finances will dictate.
Okay.
I don't know.
what I'm going to tell him tomorrow. I don't know. I'd already told him yes. Then before I left yesterday, I put it on hold. I said, oh, I forgot about that pending possible thing on that Saturday, and he's going to be on vacation. He's trying to find somewhere to work, and I didn't even ask him originally. But anyway, it would work out better if I didn't work that next Saturday when we're leaving. I'd have more time, and
So where is it that you work? Back to the camera.
I work at Rimmon Wheel Service. I think I mentioned that earlier in this.
All right. So what about your work history? What was the first place you ever worked?
First place I ever worked was F.W. Woolworth Company in Brentwood Shopping Center. Made 75 cents an hour.
Doing what?
What did I do?
Nothing.
This was a general stock clerk, and then on Saturdays I sold ice cream outside, and that was in 19, whatever that was, 50,
In the 50s.
16 would that'd be 58 that I would be driving, so it was about 58 whenever I could start working without a permit. With a permit, I had to have a work permit. So that was only 4, no, I was 16, that's right, Tom Fay was
You need a
15.
work permit. It's-
Yeah, I did. Yeah, under 16 you did. Tom Fay lied and told me he was 16, but he wasn't. He had to have a work permit and he didn't. But anyway, but then the one thing I did there, the hula hoops came out, and I was a hula hoop demonstrator in the middle of the place. I had to do the stuff. That was my very first job. From
So-
there I moved. I lived in Green Hills. I worked at the Green Hills grocery store
Doing what?
as a bagger, stock clerk at night. Delivery boy. We used to deliver groceries to people's houses back in those days. When I was in high school, I'd come home from school. The boxes would be sitting on the floor with a name on a piece of white paper taped to it and their address, and I'd throw them in this panel truck and I'd deliver them.
For how much? An hour?
I don't recall what the hourly pay there. I know my first job that one at Woolworth was 75 cents. I'm not sure what I don't know. I don't remember. A couple dollars an hour, maybe not even that. I don't know.
Were you in any extracurriculars in high school? Sports or anything?
Played freshman basketball, but I was small in high school, and that's the only time I played. I tried for the baseball team and I didn't make it. And I tried to go basketball in sophomore, but I was too small and got cut. I wasn't very tall then. I was really small. And after that, I didn't try any more sports. I can't remember else what I did. I can't remember if I did anything else. I probably did. I don't remember. I was class president of our group in the senior year. Not of the whole class, but part of the class. There was a couple of us were presidents of different groups, and I was the president of my particular group.
President of a group?
Well, we had senior class presidents for everybody, but we had them split up, and I forget how it worked. I don't remember how it
Was
worked.
this the 50s and it was split up by race? What the
No.
hell? What the hell are we talking about?
This was high school, Bacon, 56 to 60. But I was a class president, and probably was just my particular class that I had. I mean, I had a group of us that were all in most of the same classes together, and I was the spokesperson. for
All
that
guys
group.
school, right?
All guys school, correct. Back then, all the parochial high schools were all guys schools, and then they had all girls schools. They didn't have mixed at that time. There was only one in the town that was mixed, and that was where my wife went. For you youngsters, Grandma, she went to McNicholas, and that was girls and boys, but that was the only one in town at that time. Now they're all pretty much mixed, except Elder's not,
Moeller.
and Muller's not, I don't think.
St.
And St. X. But St. X is more of a private than the other ones.
I don't know about some
Where that lady that I do taxes for?
Bench's kid.
Well, the lady I do taxes, that's where she works, golf. I don't know.
It might be mixed.
I don't know.
So where did you work during the 60s? You said you went to night school. Where did you work?
Well, when I first got out of high school, when I first got out of high school, I went to work for a company called Bearings Incorporated. And then when I started college, I was in the co-op program, and that was my co-op job. I worked.
Doing what?
I was in sales there. I was studying accounting. Accounting was what I thought I was going to do. I wasn't sure, but I was working for Bearings Incorporated, and I started out as a parts clerk and worked my way up, and I finally was in sales primarily, and that was my co-op job. When I was the first year you were in a co-op student, you had to go to school about 35 weeks or whatever before you started co-op, and then after that you started co-oping your job. And I had another guy called Darrell Wiesenhahn, one of the Wiesenhahn guys. He and I split the thing at Bearings Incorporated as far as working, and then I continued that through 2 years, and then I ran out of money as far as paying for the tuition. My dad wouldn't help me. We didn't have. He just wouldn't. I don't know why he wouldn't. He wouldn't go on financial aid. I guess we had financial aid then. I don't know, but he wouldn't do anything. So I got a job where I was working. They paid. They had a tuition refund program, so I started going to night school. And I was going to night school for a couple years. Was I still at Bearings? When did I start? What did I do for Bearings?
Graduated
I was at Bearings. What did I do?
after Gary was born.
So I was at Bearings. What did I do in 1963? Must have been Bearings, and I was still in sales.
Well,
Wait a
I can
minute.
happy to answer that, because the question I always ask you is, where were you when John Kennedy was shot? November of 63.
I was with Bearings Incorporated.
So that was November of 63.
Well, that's when I'm okay. So I was with Bearings at that time, and I was going to night school, and they were paying the tuition, get a pass, and then came time in 1965 when I was going to night school that the deferments ran out because the Vietnam War was going on, and I was going to have to go. I couldn't go to school anymore. They were going to draft everybody, they were going to take everybody. So I joined the Ohio National Guard at that time. And the only place I could get in was not Cincinnati, it was Dayton, Ohio, through one of our vendors when I was with Bearings Incorporated. They sold bearings. I was a bearing supplier, and he was a major up there and got me in. And I joined up there, and I continued the night school when I had to go to the once-a-month meetings and all that kind of stuff. And shortly after that, all the riots started, and I was really busy with doing that, plus going to school full time, and it kept me very busy.
Now, what did you do? You say you doing that, the riots. What did you do? You just
Well,
stood in the line with the shields?
What happened is, in 1960, when was it? Well, I started in December. So I was in 1966. They had some things going on up in Dayton, Ohio, and President Johnson came. And President Johnson came at that time, and he stirred everything up by whatever he said. And I was at that point with Bearings Incorporated, I was an outside salesman. I mean, I was a local outside salesman. And I came in the office one afternoon to get some paperwork or do some paperwork, and they told me I had a call, and I picked up the call, and it was a sergeant at the Army National Guard in Dayton. Said, "Private Otten, mount up. We got riots going on." So I took off, and I was gone for 3 weeks. Now, when I did riot duty, all I did, being a private, is we stood in front of liquor stores with our rifles, sheets on the bayonets, no rounds. They had rounds in our little pouches on our thing. No rounds locked and loaded. They came by every 15 minutes and made you stand at attention to snap open your bolt. You couldn't have any rounds locked or loaded in the gun, in the rifle. Only the police really ran them. So that's what I did. So we had a couple of those. Jim Rhodes was the governor, and there were several times when we had some uprisings up in that area, and we were called out. So then they decided we probably ought to start having riot training for these troops, which we never had. It was strictly a military. So we had riot training, and we're sitting up there in a big park up in Dayton. I can't remember what it was. It was a park. It was like a racetrack. And they were describing everything, but they wanted to tell us. One thing they wanted to tell us, now, gentlemen, we want to tell you one thing. When you're in these riots, and if you shoot somebody, you're on your own. We're not going to stand behind you. And everybody kind of stopped and looked at each other, and I told myself, I said, it's time for me to move on here. So I transferred out of the Ohio National Guard into the Army Reserves at that point in 1968. At that point, I'd been to basic training. When I left for basic training in 66, I was working for Bearings Incorporated, and they had to keep your job, original job you had. So when I came back 5 months later, I told myself it's time for me to do what I was planning on doing, that's being accounting, and I left Bearings Incorporated and went to General Motors in Norwood, and I was working with them. And at that point, when I was over there, I was able to transfer, because there was a lot of people over to the Norwood accounting office that were in the Fort Thomas Army Reserve outfit, and I transferred over there at that point. And I worked for GM, with GM until 1970, late 1970, right after 2 months after Gary was born, and then I went to a company called Dorman Products, and I stayed with Dorman until 1987, 86, 87, and then I left them and did some consulting work independent for a while, and then I went to Rim and Wheel, which is where I am right now. So I haven't had a big job background other than those particular places. That's really about it.
Fair enough.
I've been in accounting. I was first office manager at Rim and Wheel. Now I just do the accounting, all that, and personnel work and all that stuff.
All right, well, hold that thought. I got to change tapes. On
Yes, sir.
some ancient audio tape. All right, well, this is part 2 of July 4th, 2007. So
Okay.
that's for my records. All right, so
Well,
when
the last tape I brought you up to date. I started.
all right, well, the Army,
Yeah.
particularly your favorite stories. Who was in the Army with
Well,
you?
when I was in the Ohio National Guard, it was pretty much just standard stuff. But when I got to Fort Thomas, Kentucky, the 478th Engineers in the Army Reserve, I had all the big red machine players there, the big ones like Johnny Bench and Pete Rose and Darrell Cheney, and there was a couple other ones, I can't remember their names. So that made it a little bit interesting when we had those Reds players in our outfit, especially Johnny Bench, because he was definitely going to be a star, going to be a star in the future. So. But he played, he was a reservist, he was there all the time, made all the meetings, never had any excuses, was always there. Went to summer camp in Camp AP Hill, which is up south of Washington, D.C., off Interstate 95, down near Richmond, 1 year. And I'll tell this story. Probably everybody's already heard it. And when we got there, it was a summer camp. Some of the older gentlemen thought This place is worse than Korea because it's all tents. You lived in tents for 2 weeks, and Johnny was there, and he had his Lincoln Continental parked over to the side and all this stuff. But they let him leave to go play in the All-Star game up in Washington, D.C. at that time, that year. But one of the things interesting about that summer camp was that what used to happen in the summer camps is back then you had draftees, and they had a 6-year obligation. They spent 2 years active duty and 4 years inactive. So what the government did on the last year, they would send these troops who had been in the service for several years to one of our 2-week summer camps, just out of, I don't know why. So this one year we're up there, and Johnny Bench is there. This picture of the television show MASH with the tents and walking around, that's what it looked like. That's what we were when we were there for 2 weeks, just like that. So at that time, I had to help in the morning get troops for stand up, what do you call it, in the morning for reveille and all that stuff, and to report to make sure everybody was there. We could never get these fellows who were these draftees who were in. I had to go get them out of bed and everything. But there was one fellow, and he was from New York, and he was very boisterous. We'd go in there at night, and he'd be cussing up and down, "Johnny Bench, you're not worth anything." And we're at the mess hall one night, and he's giving Bench the story. "Johnny, you're not worth 2 cents. John says, "Come on, let's go out and play catch." A Bench and all the players there, they always had their gloves because after hours they would play catch just to stay in shape because they were in the middle of the baseball season. This was in July. So they go out in the front there, in between the tents, and they start playing catch. And this fellow starts throwing the Bench, and Bench is squatted down just like a catcher, had his hat turned around. The kid threw about 10 pitches to him and was just giving Bench the business. "Bench, you're not worth a hoot," and blah, blah, blah. About the 11th pitch, Johnny stood up and fired one back at him, like he was throwing a guy out at second base. And the glove came right off of the kid's hand. He picked it up, he set it down, he turned around, he said, I won't say what he said. He said a nasty word, but I won't say it. But he said, "You made a believer out of me," and he walked away. And for the rest of the time, the 2 weeks, he never said another word about Bench. So that was a story. I wish I had it on tape or some sort of a video where you could see that, because I can still see it today. It was just phenomenal to watch that. Everybody in the whole place was standing around watching this. That was the story. And then we played softball, and I was in charge of my group, and I was an umpire. And one time we were playing after hours, and they were playing softball, and Johnny sitting behind on a Jeep and giving me all kinds of stuff. And I said, "Turn out, Bench." I said, "You're going to be the next batter." So he came up and subbed. And he hit one so foul down in the woods, we never did find it. Of course, it was in the middle of the season. He's trying to hit this low pitch softball. So we had some pretty good experiences. That was one of the time. Later on, my dad, Jack Otten, Senior, I guess, Jack Otten, whoever, and when his first grandson was born, he had a baseball from when we played knot-hole ball, and he was going to give it to his first grandson. So the first grandson was Gary. So I got that ball, and I took it, that he gave to Gary, I took it over to one of the reserve meetings on a weekend, and I had Johnny sign it. And he honored "To Gary from Johnny Bench." It was personally signed by him. So to this day, we call it the Johnny Bench Baseball, and here we are in July of 2007. We don't know what happened to the ball. It got misplaced. It probably went down the sewer. We're not sure. I had it placed up in a hall cupboard up on the top shelf where nobody could get to it, but somebody got to it. It got misplaced, but that would have been a very valuable piece of equipment to have today, with him personally sign it to Gary and so forth and so on. That brings us up to 1971 when I got out.
Now, what about Rose? Was he
Well,
there?
when Johnny Bent, when we had our weekend meetings, Johnny was there all the time. But Rose would come over on a weekend, and what they had back then, what they called day rooms. And the day rooms is where the permanent people that worked there all week long had their offices, their tables and everything. So I'd walk by there on a Saturday morning, and you'd see Johnny in that room there, and he'd have his big wad of money pulled out, and he'd be peeling off money to these guys, and
John or
Pete.
Pete Rose, he'd be peeling off money to these other guys, and you wouldn't see him the rest of the weekend, so he'd pay off and he'd be gone. So he wasn't there very often. He did serve his time. He didn't go to summer camps with us. He always went in the fall, went with somebody else, some other unit, some other time. I don't ever recall him being at a 2-week summer camp with us. No, I don't believe so.
What was the farthest you
What?
traveled with your Army?
Well, it was down to Virginia, at AP Hill. That was over 500 miles that we traveled. But then what happened is when I went to summer camp the first time I wasn't even in basic training yet. When I started in the Ohio National Guard in 1966, I rode in the back of a deuce-and-a-half truck for the whole period. And when I got there, I was sick as a dog. And I was sick as a dog the whole time. And I told myself I will never do that again. So after that, I was able to drive my car whenever we went on summer camps, unless it was not too far. We went a couple times down in Kentucky and up in northern Ohio. But I never, next time we went to Virginia, which is a 5-mile, I drove my car because I wasn't going to ride on the back of one of those trucks. I was either a driver in the future or whatever, so it was a little bit better. But that riding on that board seat in the back just had my stomach so tight I couldn't do anything. It was just terrible. So.
Did you have to get special permission to do that?
To do what?
To drive
No,
your car?
I was able to drive my car. I can't remember how I got the permission. Being I was in the payroll person, they kind of let me give me some special things, and I was able to drive my car to the summer camps most of the time after that. Just based on request, they would give it to me. One time we went to Fort Knox, I guess it was Fort Knox for summer camp, and Johnny was with it. I'll tell you a story about it. And down there, we were down in a little town south of that. I can't think of what it's called. But anyway, Johnny had his Lincoln Continental parked on the street. And every night, he was in his car. He was at Riverfront Stadium playing baseball. Because in their 201 files, there was a note from Bob Howsam saying whenever they were off duty, they were expected to be at the ballpark, and he was there. And I'll tell you another story. I'll have to tell you another story about Johnny Bench. When we were up in this AP Hill up in Virginia near Richmond. This was one of the years we were up there, and this was the year that they walked on the moon.
69.
69, that's when it was. Johnny was a cook, and they had it set up for him that he would be off on the weekend. So you had a 2-week summer camp. You got there the first weekend, you couldn't do anything. Then the week between the 2 weeks, they made sure he was off so he could come back to play ball. Well, he's up there, and he came back to play ball at the Riverfront. And one of the officers there who was in charge found out about it because he was just a hot, fresh officer back from Vietnam, and he was all gung-ho. He made him come back. Because Jan, we weren't married yet, and Jan heard on, was it news, television, or whatever, they had the news broadcast of Johnny Bench. This is from 478th Engineers, you got to come back. You cannot be back there playing ball. So they made him come back over the weekend. So that was another story about Bench.
Which, I'm such a nerd that I'm the only one who would point out that he said 1969 and he said Riverfront, which would be wrong because it would be Crosley Field. But I'm such a nerd that I'm the only one who sits here and thinks that.
That's right. So that was 69. Now, whatever year they walked on the moon, that was 69. Because we were there. We were in summer camp when they did that.
All right, fine. Let's do the generic moments that everyone does. Where were you when Kennedy was shot?
I was down in Lockland, along the Lockland Highway. There's a road that runs up along the Lockland Highway. It's now called it's Interstate 75 now, but it was the walls between where Stearns and Foster used to be on Lockland down here. You remember? If you go down Benson Street and you come up into Lockland there, and the Stearns and Foster, and there's that little road that runs along 75. There's a little 2-lane road, a little 1-lane road that runs along.
Shepherd Lane?
No, you're not. No, if you go down Benson and you cross over, you're up into Lockland. You cross over the tracks, and you come up to where Stearns and Foster was, and you go up one street further, right, and right below, right there, you see the expressway. Well, there are those little things that run along the expressway there. I was coming back from lunch, and I was on that street, and I had the radio on. That's where I was when it happened. When Johnny Bench, there was a restaurant on the corner there, and I just had lunch, and it was on my way back to Bearings there, a little Bearings place on Shepherd Lane for lunch. Yeah.
So you just heard it on the radio.
Heard on the radio, right. Got back, tried to make phone calls, and everything was shut down. You couldn't do anything at that point. That's where I heard about it right there. That's where it was.
Okay, and where were you for, we already sort of discussed it, where were you for the moon landing? The actual Apollo 11 moon landing.
It was in, it was on a Sunday night, if I recall. It was at night when they landed on it. And I was coming back from, it was the weekend between the summer camp. It was a Sunday between the start of the second week, and we were coming, there was a couple of us, we were in a car, we were coming back on one of the side roads into the Camp APO, Virginia. I can see us in the car. It was dark. It was dark at night. We were headed back. That's where I was in Virginia.
See, because I have evidence to prove that that may not be right. Because I've seen old letters that were in the attic that you wrote to her where you were writing to her as you were watching it on TV. Because you actually paused paused and went ... Wow, wasn't that amazing?
Didn't they walk? Didn't it happen at night here? Because I recall we were in a car. There was a couple guys. It was my car. We were coming back on a road, going back to that APL, and I think that's when they walked on the moon that night. I think.
I don't know. I taped it, but
I'd have to look at those letters to tell you what I was doing. I don't know.
just found a letter.
When I was in the army. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It might have been something else. Might have been.
Unless you were just writing stories, but it looked like you were writing it as you were watching it happen.
Well, we were in the office and they let us turn the TV on one day when we were working because all the stuff. Maybe it was. Maybe that's when they landed that Sunday night, and then they walked on Monday. That's what it was. They landed on that Sunday night when I was coming back, and we were in the office working, and the guy, this officer okay, this is a big event. We're going to turn the TV on and let you guys watch the moonwalk. That's what it was. So I think we were sitting in the office at that time. I must have recapped that in my brain and was right or something about it, I guess. I think it's when we came back that Sunday night, they must have just landed there. That's because I could see it in the car on this 2-lane road heading back to wherever the heck we were down there in Virginia, going back to Camp APO. Okay.
Do you recall when Nixon resigned?
Yes, and I don't recall what I was doing. It was big, but it's not a big moment in my brain.
And it wasn't historically big, but now it's big because of the movie, but you've always said you don't even remember the events of Apollo 13 because you were down in Fort Lauderdale like the week before, the week after that happened, and you've always said you don't recall.
Now, Apollo 13 was which one?
The Tom Hanks movie where the disaster in space and they had to work
We were there,
back.
weren't we there after that happened, Jan, or before? That was the trip, wasn't that the trip we
It was April 70.
That was the trip when we were on our honeymoon.
we went to the space center.
We went, Jan, Mom, and I went to the Space Center, and they hadn't left yet. That was April. That was before that, wasn't it?
Oh, I don't know the
Yeah, that was
Well,
April.
we went to the building where they had the space.
They were making it. We went in. That's when we were on our honeymoon trip to Florida. That's where we were down there. We stopped at the Space Center, yes.
And they let us go
April.
in and see the actual spaceship.
Yeah, and that was before that trip. That was before that took off. So that was in April of 70. I think that was later in that year that they went.
No, it was April of 70.
Dumbfounded, I popped the contact lens.
Well, that was the year, April of 70. It was right before they took off
The
then.
trip was April of 70.
Yeah, well,
was
That's
Apollo
when Mom
13.
and I were down there, so we were there right before that took off. That's when we were there. I know we were there before it happened. I know that.
Okay. You
That was
wouldn't
it.
know anything about John Lennon, so where were you when Reagan was shot in 81?
I don't recall where I was.
Just at work?
Probably at work. It was during the day, if I recall, wasn't it? Yeah, I was at work. That was nothing. It was special, but it wasn't something that sticks out in my mind of where I was. No, it was probably at work.
Okay, there's only a few more of those events. Where were you when the Challenger exploded, 86, January?
I was at Dorman Products over in Blue Ash working, and I remember when that happened. Yes, I was still at Dorman. Dave Brosborn and I were talking about it when it happened. I heard it on the news that somebody had mentioned it at the office, and we all got up and turned the radio or whatever on and listened to it. Yes, I remember that. It was in that January. Yeah, it was January. I was working in Blue Ash over here. Yes.
Okay,
That was 19 what?
86.
86, okay.
How about, I think there's only a few more. Well, when did you first hear about the events of 9/11, of September 11th, 2001?
I was working. I was in Rim and Wheel, and
Tuesday
I
morning.
was.
I think I called you.
No, I was just started. Somebody left. And I was picking up the mail that day, and I had started out. I had the radio on in the car, and they were talking about it. Maybe you did call me, or somebody called me, and then I had it on in the car, and then they came back and we all turned the TV on. But I was at work at Ribbon Wheel, and I was picking up the mail at that time, and I remember going into that little spot there, Guest and Dalton, there at
It
that
was early. What
intercompany.
time?
About
Yeah, it was
20
8
after
o'clock.
8.
Well, by the time I went to the post office at 9:30, it was still going. It was still going on, or whatever was happening. Yeah,
The first building
you
fell
might
at
have
10.
called me. You probably called me and told me about it, but then
Gary called me.
you know, somebody, because they were working here. Remember, they were working at our house. They were working on that basement then. That day of 2001. They were finishing up. That was the year we got back from Kate and Butch's to flood at the basement, and him and Alan were working in the basement that day.
No, he called me.
No, it couldn't have been because
Weren't they?
no, because I distinctly recall I'm the one who took all the paneling downstairs and took the closets out. I did that on the last weekend of the year. I don't know why I remember it, but I just remember it because of the Reds game. As I was listening to the last Reds game of the year, which would have been the first weekend of October, and it was 2001 when I was taking all that stuff out downstairs before Gary had even started.
Well, we
And
were
that
on
was
that summer was when we were at Kate and
Well,
Butch's.
you were gone.
And you guys had called, Gary had called and said that we were just checking out of Williamsburg, and Gary said that the water.
Well, that was in the summer was when it
Okay.
flooded, but
All right.
it wasn't done downstairs.
No, but
You
then
just had the new
September is
carpet.
when he was working on it. Because I came home that night, and the television was on. I remember Alan and them standing right there watching it, and Gary said they went up there, and the gas was like $5 a gallon up here. You better go up and get some gas. And I went up, and that's when they got in trouble up here for charging $5 and something for gas up here at the Shell station. That Gary was working here that day. I'm pretty sure he was.
No, he wasn't, because he called me.
Pretty sure he was. 2001, the 9/11?
Mhm.
No, I think they were.
That was right after Margie died,
Yeah, I know it was.
and
I thought he was working here that day.
I wasn't working
He
then.
may have just been
Maybe
here
he,
to estimate
maybe
or
when
something.
maybe he was here working, but it was in that area that he was working here. I thought.
I just remember the last. I was just tearing those walls out when you guys were gone, and it was a Sunday all the way into Sunday night that I tore all the paneling and tore the closets
After the
down.
water came down, you mean?
Oh yeah, well after.
Okay.
And it was the last
Well,
game,
'cause we
game
came-
of the baseball season that year, so it was
Because we
early
came
October.
home and
Anyway,
we came home that Saturday because we stayed. Remember, we stayed a couple of days and we drove home and we were. Yeah. Okay.
That was definitely
That was
June or July.
That was July. We were up there. Okay.
okay, well,
That's about it.
okay. Why don't we go? We'll save the lighter stuff for the end. So just so you can make sure we get everything recorded. So, where were you when you first heard about your dad in '85?
And as far as him about ready to die,
Yes.
we were in Fairfield Glade, Tennessee.
Which
Was our
was every freaking year. Okay.
which was it's a timeshare we own, and it's 60 miles west of Knoxville, 100 miles east of Nashville. Okay. It was on a Sunday night that Ed called.
We had just gotten
We got there on Saturday.
And
Ed called me on Sunday night,
Judy and
my dad went into a
Herm.
coma, and then Judy and Herm were there with us, and Wessels.
That would be Judy and Arm
Judy
West.
Herm Wessels and Mr. Wessels. We left on Monday, and he took me back. And by the time I got back, Dad was already gone.
Now, what did he?
Now, I have to challenge that because Ed called and said he had died.
No. He was in a coma. He hadn't died yet.
He had died. Because you laid on the bed and you were crying.
Oh, I thought he.
And Herm brought you back
I know. On
that same day.
Sunday night.
Yeah.
I thought it was.
'Cause
You
it
guys
was-
left in the middle of the night. I remember that.
Was it the middle of the night? I knew we left in the middle of the night.
Because I remember you guys
Okay,
left. I was
maybe.
barely awake, and then I got up the next morning. It was just us.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
What did
Well,
he,
that's
what,
where we were anyway. It's in Tennessee.
And what did he pass of?
Cancer,
From smoking?
primarily. And he had heart problems too over the years. So. Right.
Okay, because this is also historical record here for genetics as well. So he didn't have diabetes or anything like
No.
that. He just
Not
had
that I'm
heart
aware
problems.
of, no. He had heart problems and he had cancer.
So that's
He
that's
had,
two references now for this genetics in this family for heart
to let you,
issues.
to put this in perspective, you know, when I say he had heart problems, in 1968, he had one of the first pacemakers when they first came out put in. Back in 1968. It was one of the first pacemakers where they just came out on the market, and he had them all over his body. But then they were the size of a pack of cigarettes, and sometimes they'd place it here, and every year or two they'd have to go in into surgery, take it apart, put a new battery in it. It wasn't like however they do it now. I don't know how they do it, but he had to have a battery replaced every so often. So, but he had a heart attack, and
It's not invasive anymore.
no, it's not very invasive. But then they had to go down the cavity of the chest and do everything. He was in the hospital for 3 weeks when he had that put in. But he had one of the first pacemakers that was made back in 1968 put in.
So it wasn't a unexpected event when he passed. He was already in
No,
the
he
nursing
was
home.
not. That was an unexpected event. No, he was sick. He was sick
He was
prior
in
to
the
that time.
nursing home.
He was in a nursing home close to the house, and I had him up there close to me, so in case there was anything while I was here, I could go up there and be with him real quick. He was up at the nursing home on Galworth Road, there across from Dillonville Shopping Center, and I had him there for a reason, because I wanted to be able to get to him fast in case I needed him. But yeah, he was very sick before then. Yes, it wasn't. It was a shock, yes, but it was not a total shock, and it was 1985 July.
Okay. What did he do for a living?
He was in sales. He started out as the job I remember when I was little. He was the purchasing agent for Cincinnati Milling Machine Company, which is now called Millicron. I don't know what it's going to be called when it's probably not still around now. Then now it is partially, but it was called Cincinnati Milling Machine, and he had a military firm that didn't have to go in the military then because he was working for the machine tool company, which was supplying parts and goods for the war back then.
World
But
War
he was
II.
World War II. So he was a purchasing agent out there, and he worked a lot of hours. I remember going out with my mother and picking him up at night. From there, he was hired by one of their suppliers called Imbus Lumber Company, and he was a salesman. He sold lumber, and he had a territory of not only around here in Cincinnati, but he had West Virginia, and I forget where else. He had another spot because he used to go out of town a lot. Spend Monday through Thursday out of town, be home on Friday on the weekends. But he was in sales, and then from there, after he got sick, he had the heart attack. He went to work for it's still there. What's the name of the place down there behind McCluskey? Cincinnati Gasket and Packing Company, right down there behind McCluskey, sort of where the Wolves live. And he worked there because one of the guys there worked with him at the milling machine, and he wasn't able to be out. He couldn't travel anymore. He couldn't be a salesman. So he worked down there, and he was in the office, and he did buying and things like that. And then from there, he retired. That's where he retired from.
When did he retire?
That's a good question, Greg. Early 80s, probably 1981, maybe. 82, somewhere in that area. I don't recall the exact date. I'm not sure.
How old was he when he passed?
71. So he was born in 15. Yeah, it was about 71.
Okay, so
1985.
how old were you when he was doing the traveling where he'd be gone all week?
I was in high school.
So what was it like? What was home life like when he was gone?
Oh,
all
it was
week?
fine. Mom and I we did fine. Mom and I and two sisters, we did fine. We didn't have any problems. Home life was fine.
How did you get along with your sisters growing up?
Pretty good. My sister Judy, her and I used to have fights when we were young, but just typical brother-sister fights. And then the young sister Kathy, I mean, the time she was growing up, I was already pretty much gone. I was just living there, sleeping there. But yeah, I got along with my sisters fine. We never had any problems at all. Still to this day, we don't. We get along very well. Very well.
Okay. What did your mother work?
When I was young, she did not work, no. Later on, living in Green Hills, she worked for the Green Hills schools, and she worked in the cafeteria. And she worked there for, I'm not sure how many years, it was a few. And she was collecting a retirement from them. And she had good health insurance from them, and that took all the bills that my dad had when he was sick with the heart problems, took care of all those bills. But she worked just worked in the cafeteria of the Green Hills schools. I can't remember what her job was. you know, when they were married or before, I can't remember what she did. I forget. I can't. It's not. Yeah, I'm drawing a blank on that right now. What she did, but because when I grew up, she was at home. She was not working, so I had no idea what she did prior to that. If she did, I can't remember at this point. But she was home with us all the time. Just like my son's mother, my wife was home with our sons when they were growing up. I made sure that she did that because I wanted a mother to be around with the kids all day long. I didn't want to be without a mother. I can't remember what she did. Good question. It'll probably hit me later on, but I can't think of what it is right now. What her job was.
So she actually worked before you were born?
Oh, sure. I mean, yeah, well, I mean, there was a child before me that they lost in pre-birth. I mean, I don't think he lived but a day or whatever. Somebody before me. But I mean, whatever her job was when they were married, I don't know what it was. I just can't think of where she worked. It's not coming. It'll come to me, but it's not coming to me right this moment.
Okay, and when did she pass?
December 1999.
Okay, and what else did you learn on that day after her funeral in 1999?
That was a very interesting day. She passed on, you just said the date, and I don't recall the exact date. I got it
It
written.
was right around Christmas.
It was before Christmas. It was like the 20th, maybe, let's say, 19th or 20th. It's pretty close to Christmas. She passed, we had the service. We had the service at the graveyard, and after we had the service at the graveyard, we went to have some dinner, lunch.
Cooker.
And Cooker's, is that what
Cooker Restaurant in Tri-County, which
Cooker's
is not
Restaurant,
there
Tri-County.
anymore.
Okay, and then we were sitting there at the restaurant, and my son Gary and his wife announced that they were going to have a child that same day. And he's going to be a boy, and he's going to be named Jack. So all that in one day. My mother dying the day before, we buried her that morning. That afternoon, I was emotional. I couldn't hardly even speak. And then here I got a grandson coming up, going to live in my dad's house, and his name is Jack. And today, when I talk about it, I'm not as emotional as I used to be, but when I used to talk about it, I get very emotional. I couldn't even finish the statement. Now you can see I can finish it, but it's starting to get emotional as I talk about it because that's very, very close to my heart when I see that. So when they called him Jack, Gary, when he was first born, they would call him Jack, and he'd be running around. One day, I think right in here, Christy stopped and said, Jack Otten, because he was doing something wrong, and I kind of froze. That's the first time I ever heard him call him Jack Otten, just stuff like that. I kind of froze for a minute because I never heard it say it like that. It was always just Jack this and Jack that, So, but that's the very emotional thing, but it's been very good. And I'll tell you a story that just happened recently. I was on vacation a couple weeks ago. I played golf with my son Paul and my brother-in-law Bob Nabb. We played golf, and then the next day I was off. I called and see if they want to take Jack to play golf. I bought him a golf club for Christmas. Yes, I mean, we go hit drive balls, and we did. We went out to Reeves out there at Lunken Airport to hit golf balls. And on the way out in the car, I was talking to him. I was telling him how his great-grandfather Jack was such a good golfer, and he was. My dad was a very good golfer. I mean, he was very good at playing golf. So we're out there driving balls this day, and Jack, the grandson, is hitting the balls. He said, my great-grandfather's up there watching me. I almost froze. I almost came to tears when he said that. He said his just what I had talked to him earlier about, his great-grandfather, how good of a golfer he was, and he sat there and he hitting those balls. He said, yeah, my great-grandfather's up there watching me. I thought, oh my gosh, I almost went to tears right at that moment. So it's been a very nice experience. I mean, but all the grandkids are good. They're all good kids.
And what's the count of grandkids at this
The
current
count of
stage?
grandkids right now is 5. We just had the most recent one in January of this year, of January 07. He's 5 months old. 6 months now. Today.
It's January, that would be.
Well, no, 6 months would be January. So it'll be the 5th. What is tomorrow? The 5th? Tomorrow it'll be 5 months old. Right,
And that's
February,
Nathan.
March, April, May, June. No, 6 months old. Right? January, February, March, April, May, June. 6 months old it'll be. 7 months, 6 months. Yeah, okay. January the 5th, I believe he was born on. So he'll be 6 months old tomorrow.
That's Nathan.
That his name is Nathan. He's the youngest. We have Gary has Jack, who we just been talking about. They have another daughter. Her name is Caitlin. Now they have Nathan, and my third son Brian. He has twins, William and Tess, and they're 3 years old. They're about 3.5 years old right now.
And the weirdness of all this is you're probably talking right to them in like 20 years.
I'll probably talk to them. And now, what do you mean by that?
You're probably talking right to them right now.
In 20 years.
It's probably like,
guys, I hope you enjoyed this. I'm just telling you the way it is. I love y'all. Y'all are great. All my sons have been terrific. Couldn't ask for anything better. Never had a problem with any one of them when they were growing up. Never had a call or, gee, your son did this, Mr. Otten. You got to get down and pick him up, or, he did this. We never had any problems with him. I'm just so proud of all of them. Plus the grandkids they're just wonderful. I mean, I know right now you're young, but when you're looking at this now 30 years later, you're grandpa. Look at grandpa talking about us when we were little. Well, I love y'all. You're all great kids. And my sons are all great boys. And my wife's great. We just had a great, great life, and it's just been terrific. I don't know how else to describe it. I'm just so proud of everyone, all my sons and the 4 grandkids. Maybe we'll have, by this time we probably got more, but right now it's just 5. You 5? Or?
no, Gary and Chris still keep going.
Probably not. I doubt it. It's Greg and Jen's turn.
Yeah, right.
But
yeah, hopefully when you're watching.
Hope you're watching this. Greg and Jen will be having 3 or 4.
Oh, Jesus, no way.
And Greg's got this big house. He'll have this big house in Indian Hill with all this stuff going on because he's in.
God, that sure as hell hope
He's
I'm not
in
living in Indian Hill.
He's in.
What's wrong with Indian Hill?